sees a character open a mirror cabinet and shut it, they're going to expect somebody, behind the character. If there's a dark doorway like my closet in the corner here, they're going to expect something to come out of it. And so there's a constant play of expectation and payoff.
First of all, I love the Boogeyman. I love the fact that I got a chance to revisit it around this time of year during the spooky Halloween season. Can you talk to me about what the original script looked like and what the process was, what you needed to change to get it to the screen? Because I know that the original script started differently than what was shot.
Yeah, so the original draft was by Beck and Woods, and it was in really good shape. That it was very different from the direction that I would want to take the story. And they'd kind of cracked the main problem of adapting this short story, because the short story is just a two-hander. It's a conversation that happens in the therapist office. They figured out this genius way into it by making that the inciting incident. You make that act one, and then you basically kind of extrapolate from there and build out the story. They had told the story with Will Harper, the therapist father, right, being the lead character, which was, the problem was that meant that the movie kind of took place in the realm of adults, which is a very different feeling to a movie that focuses on the younger characters. And to me, this movie had to do two things. It had to be true to the Stephen King short story and true to King's writing, but it also had to be the definitive best Boogeyman movie out there, King or not. And part of the kind of connotation of the Boogeyman is that feeling of being a terrified kid and imagining the Boogeyman in your closet. And it felt to me like the perspective of a child would be much more evocative than the perspective of an adult. So, I worked with Mark Heyman, who's the guy that wrote the movie, to flip it to be about Sadie, who's, a character kind of between two worlds. She's not quite an adult and she's not quite a kid still. And her younger sister, who in Beck and Woods draft was a little boy, and we flipped that so it became a film about sisters. And then we kind of like completely reworked the third act so that it became much more of a kind of culmination of Sadie's story.
Stephen King's went on record as saying he absolutely loves this adaptation of the Boogeyman. Is there any other iconic horror author, or would you like to adapt another type of creepypasta type of character at all?
Bruckner beat me to the punch, but I'd always had ideas of how to build out the Hellraiser universe, and Clive Barker was somebody who would always consistently mess me up as a kid when I'd be reading his short stories. There's lots of franchises that I grew up on loving. I think Nightmare on Elm Street is one that comes to mind. I know there's a bit of a rights issue or something going on there, so I'm not sure if anyone's going to get to do a Nightmare on Elm Street movie for a long time. But
oh wow,
just that mode of horror storytelling that plays in kind of surreal dream space is so there's so much you could do with that, and there's nothing really since Nightmare on Elm Street that's done that to the level that Wes was doing. So that world and that character would be a dream project.
I love this time of year. I like the fall. I like the spooky season. And the great thing about Boogeyman coming to physical media is that you can almost do these double and triple features. So what films would you recommend folks watch as a double feature along with Boogeyman?
One of the movies that we were referencing right up top was Poltergeist. Like, I wanted this to be a movie that felt, in the way that Poltergeist kind of has this this classic definitive status. It's the ultimate Poltergeist movie is Poltergeist. The ultimate Boogeyman movie is Boogeyman. We wanted to have that ambition behind this movie and this title, but also that sense of fun. It's got such a unique tone because it's scary, but it's not kind of dour or miserable. The characters are so engaging and likable, and we wanted to kind of like blend that with a real sense of kind of a character drama, with this wonderful cast we've got. So two of the movies when I originally pitched it were Poltergeist and Ordinary People, the Robert Redford movie.
Oh, yeah,
which would be a very weird double bill. Maybe not a spooky Halloween double bill, but there's interesting kind of DNA between the two movies. And then what else? I think a lot of the movies that I was looking at for the scare scenes were James Wan movies. I mean, his first two Conjuring movies are like foundational movies for me. I always go back and watch them, and I think the way that he stages a set piece is like nobody else working today.
Last time I talked to you, you talked about developing the Boogeyman Bible, which housed a lot of ideas and concepts about the character. Now that the dust is settled from the Boogeyman movie in the theatrical release, have you talked to the studios at all about doing a sequel to the Boogeyman or even a prequel?
We've got an idea for a sequel, which is genuinely one of the best concepts for a movie that I've ever been a part of. And whether it makes sense to do a sequel, whether the studio is going to want to do a sequel, I don't know. I certainly hope that I hope that people flock to this movie on Hulu. I hope that people continue to support this movie. If they do, it looks likely that it's likelier that a sequel will happen. We've got an idea that's, even if it wasn't a Boogeyman sequel, even if it didn't take place in this universe, there's an opportunity there to make a classic horror movie that plays with aspects of horror that we haven't seen before. We haven't seen for a very long time, and I'm so excited about it. So yeah, I want to put the word out about that. If people keep supporting this movie, hopefully we'll get a chance to do that.
That sounds incredible already, and I have no idea what you're even talking about. Like, I'm already excited for it.
Yeah.
Look, I know that you're a big fan of the jump scare, and you just talked about James Wan setting up these set pieces. Can you talk about crafting the perfect jump scare?
The key is being in dialogue with the audience. The audience knows in these scenes that you're about to try and scare them, and so they're looking everywhere for how you're going to do it, where you're going to come from, and they know because they've seen a lot of these movies before. They know the rhythm of a traditional jump scare, and so your job is to trick them into thinking they know what's coming, and then blindsiding them with something that comes a beat earlier, a beat later, that comes from a place that they hadn't even anticipated, and it's really that sense of playfulness and that sense of being able to direct through lighting, through sound, through camera movement, through the actors, directing the audience's eyes to a part of the screen, and then having something happen in a part of the screen they're not paying attention to is a great classic way of doing it. It's also about playing with tropes. You play with things that they're familiar with. If an audience sees a character open a mirror cabinet and shut it, they're going to expect somebody behind the character. If there's a dark doorway like my closet in the corner here, they're going to expect something to come out of it. And so there's a constant play of expectation and payoff that you've got to enjoy it, and you've got to know horror movies enough to know what hasn't been seen before and what people are expecting.
I think the Boogeyman lends itself really well to one of these like haunted house experiences, immersive experiences. Is that something that you would want to do, build out like a Boogeyman haunted house experience?
Oh, completely. I've always wanted to do something like that, something interactive. Like, this is my third year living in LA, and I love doing the Universal Horror Nights and all the kind of like horror mazes. And there's like, it'd be a whole new kind of canvas for scaring people. But yeah, I'd love to do something like that. And I think the Boogeyman would really lend itself to that as well.
Last question I have for you. The reason I love some of these home entertainment releases, at least in the past, they would have these DVD commentaries because it was almost like going to film school. And I think talking to you a little bit, even about crafting jump scares, is a little bit of that, of like kind of going to film school. What, for any aspiring horror movie director, what's one like DVD commentary that you would recommend that they watch?
I can't think off the top of my head for horror, but one of the ones that I remember being really helpful for me starting out is the commentary on Boogie Nights that Paul Thomas Anderson does.
Same. Yeah. I agree. I love that commentary.
Incredible, and he's so open, and he's so he gets into the kind of nuts and bolts of the process in a really kind of in a way that's really easy to understand, and it's really easy to see his thought process as you're watching the movie. And I would obsess over that commentary before I even made my first short films. It was basically my film school. So I'd say that's a great place to start. And I mean, I don't know how useful it is, but I remember doing a commentary on Host that kind of talks a bit about constructing the scares. So if you get the Host DVD, it comes with a commentary that that gets into a bit of that. It's obviously in a screen life space, so it's a little different. But no, I'd love to one day do a commentary for this one. There's a great behind the scenes on this disc.
I would love to hear a commentary, and I can't wait. I love behind the scenes features on these things. So now everybody has to go buy the Boogeyman. Now I got to see this project you were talking about come to life. Look, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you.